right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you guys are. Thanks for joining us for our Synchronistic Sister Sunday. What did we say that you meet up the
Hardcore.
heart core? Welcome to our Hardcore Sunday.
With of matcha tea.
Oh my goodness. So we're not really sure where we're going to go with this right now. And we were going to do a live, but we just decided to record it and share it later. So I'm just gonna let it rip. Anywhere you want to start, Candace? There's so much, you guys. We could go with this, we could go with that.
Which is, what I was just thinking about before I came on here with you. I had these thoughts rolling in my head about some jokes and things that my family was making together. A lot of my family members are pretty open-minded. My mom, my dad, my brother. So when we get together every week or so, we talk about like what's happening in the world and how we feel about it and everything. And we were just talking about how it kind of feels like there's some really weird, fast sort of um, thought streams or changes that are being sort of like pushed to be implemented on us or like pushed into our faces, like things that maybe someone else would want us to think about that we wouldn't have necessarily naturally found the curiosity to go and learn about. It seems like there's a push
Mhm.
of this is in your face and you don't have a choice. Like it's like,
Yeah,
look at this.
look at this.
This is what we want you to look at and focus on. And if you don't, you're this, and this. It's like this sticky trap. And we were talking about, I think it's the Amish. We were like, what about the Amish people? They just decided to stop at this level. They're like, we don't want to go any further than right here. This is, horse and buggy, and we'll till the land and we'll live in this way. We don't want the TVs. We don't want the distraction from life.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, you know, maybe some of us have reached our limit with certain things. Maybe we're a lot of people are going, we want to stop here. We
Yeah.
want to get off here. We want to slow down here and assess like where we're going and what values are and what we would even want to take a stand for in a way. Like it just seems like I guess the train analogy is good. Like there's a speeding train, and then you could also use like the train stops, here's my stop,
Mhm.
or let's make it stop.
Yeah, so I'm as you're saying that, I just see it as overwhelm also. I mean, I could tie it in with so many different things. I kind of see it as, what do you call it? Is it fishing or cookies? Like when you look up something, like I will look up, let's say, solar flare activity on Google, and then all of a sudden it's like, the world is ending, a solar flare is going to hit, the magnitude is blah, 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 blah. And I get all of this stuff that is in my face when I just wanted to know if there was a solar flare, so it's almost like this push for information that isn't necessarily A, beneficial, B, there's an agenda behind it because it's full of fear and trying to get me to look like flashing lights. And then from another perspective, is it something that would benefit me for my expansion or expression of anything? Not usually. But sometimes it's good because it does make us think or it gets a conversation going. But I do see a lot of people then getting pulled in that direction. And then what that does is that pulls us off course
Mhm.
of our directional course, of our internal compass. And it ends up feeding all of these, I call them distractions, in other people might think these distractions are important and valid. And while some of them might be for them, they may not be for everyone.
Right. That's a good point. In this sort of like collective juncture, it
Mm-hmm.
seems like there was sort of a more individual path, and there still is, but there seems almost like a herding in to this one particular area, maybe to get,
Story.
yeah, to get a lot of energy, a lot of storage in that one particular space. And you were saying, when you were saying, you know, this these waves of information, when they come in, it's like it can be good because it can start conversation. But then I think that also illuminates the fact that, as a collective, in our individual lives and in our external larger platforms or planes or playing fields, um, we don't necessarily know how to have a conversation. We don't necessarily know how to have a healthy, holistic, fair dialogue full of healthy debate and boundaries. And like, and I'm
Oh,
thinking of my grandfather who used to be on the debate team, and that was encouraged in high school to
yeah,
be to debate and to have like robust ideas and have those ideas come together and almost like fight in the ring against other ideas, and no one was offended, just like the people in the ring of, say, the UFC. They're not offended when one loses. They train for that. So
yeah,
there needs to be sort of a pride or something in training your and fortifying your unique ideas,
hmm,
and to let them loose against other ideas and to see what could come out of it. And maybe that would change someone's ideas, and maybe that would positively impact the room. But you had to go and duel it out in that fair
yeah,
sense, a fair game. Whereas I'm seeing that in our strange time that we're in right now, there's an attempt to uh, make ideas dogmatic or charged, or like some ideas are not acceptable anymore, unacceptable views, or such and such. It's kind
hmm,
of carried over from, things that we've heard in the past 2 years, but it's not only related to that. That's just one aspect of, um, this whole, like, it feels all related. It feels like I'm looking at a big washing container that's got everyone in it, and it's got water pulling in, and it's just spinning everyone in this spin cycle. Like, it's
hmm,
like washing you all in the same drum, all the colors, everything, black,
yeah,
white,
yeah,
red, pink, all the colors. It's all gonna
hmm,
come together in the water, in the wash.
yeah. Well, what you're talking about also is it's funny because as you're saying that, I'm realizing what I just did a video and it's always kind of synchronistic with where the conversation ends up going. But I just where the conversation ends up going, it's like, can the conversation end up going in a healthy, fun, and reciprocal energy where one person can give and one person can receive equally? Or is it all, this is my view and this is the only view? Or is it all, I'm going to listen and I'm going to believe everything that I hear? Are we finding that balance? And also using, which this is something we've talked about before, is critical thinking. But it's not just critical thinking. And I really want to kind of go into this because we are expanding our sensory system. And so, oh, I've got goosebumps. Whew. So, for example, the goosebumps, right? I think Dan Winters calls it a shareable wave. Like when people get goosebumps, from an esoteric, it's like your higher self telling you, yes, keep going, or your angels are there with you. But from a science perspective, he mentions that it's our DNA that is now accessing a shareable frequency or energy, which is a long wave, which is something that propagates and enhances our DNA growth and expansion. Ooh, and I think that's so relevant to what you're talking about, or what we're talking about right now, and what we're conversing about. Because if we're stopping ourselves and saying, up, this is it, we can't take any more in, or this isn't what we can talk about anymore, it's off the table, then it only gives us one table. I'm seeing a DJ. Like, you can't spin the record, you can't mix and match different sounds and frequencies, because this is the only frequency we're dialed into. And but I'm hearing all of this other noise that is still um, recordable on that particular loop. But anyways, that's a whole other can of worms. But when we have these conversations, it sparks literally something within us that provokes, but that's not a bad word, that is
Yeah.
provoking.
Stoking the fire, provoking, pro-stoking.
Yeah. And people feel that might versus trigger. But a trigger isn't a bad word either, because when we are triggered by something, it can create expansion and a deeper knowingness. Now, I want to get back to the extrasensory abilities, because many people are taught to think about things. Although lately, the collective, this idea of what you were saying with herding, I was seeing funneling, like we're herded into a particular story, and now everybody has to look at that particular story if they want, it's in our faces. So it's funneling all of that into that story. But the critical thinking, then, if we're not pulling in other pieces of information that are applicable to that story, then we're not getting the whole story. We're only getting the piece of it that is being pushed in our face. And then in addition to that, if we're only thinking, but we're not using our other resources, which are our human skin suit technology, which is feeling, hearing, sensing, heart, does that feel expansive? Or does that feel, and this is where it comes back to know thyself, because if we don't know what those things are, they can be misinterpreted as, ooh, that doesn't feel good, I don't want to listen. Or is that our own fear that was just triggered within us, that maybe is coming up for us because we're having this conversation, that we can then recognize and acknowledge, so that we can integrate that and see that from a broader perspective and not be afraid of it. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
and our DNA isn't going to be expanding if we're not having these conversations. From one
Yeah.
perspective, I mean, it is, but I'm just
Beautiful.
saying that's another tool.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful point. As I was listening to you, I was just like taking in everything that you were saying. I could feel it going in my body, almost like I was, having a sip of my hot tea. I could feel my heart. I could feel my stomach. I could feel my heart opening and softening. I could feel some places in my stomach that were uncomfortable, because as you're talking, I'm thinking about things that I don't want necessarily to have to talk about or have
Mhm.
to go over. And then I run that by myself and I go, where is that discomfort? Is that your own, or are you
Mhm.
uncomfortable because other people are going to be uncomfortable? And then it's like ping. Because when I really truly ask myself, I'm a pretty open person. I like to go into no man's land or into the
Yeah,
taboo
the rabbit
horizon.
hole.
Let's go. Like, let's
Yeah,
go see. Oh,
yeah.
really? Well, I don't think that that's that bad, because that's a tangent off of this,
Mhm.
and let's back it up, let's walk it back, and then make peace there. Then you don't need that tangent anymore. That tangent is just a acting out of some sort of a suppression or miscommunication. So it's like, it's just, um it brings up so much, like our trust in others, and our trust in others and their capacity to have the conversation. And um it brings up the reality of the type of global world that we're in.
Mhm.
Really, like, yes, our local world has a different impact on us, but like, it's just talking about this level of maturity and camaraderie, um, that needs to be had, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this already because it rolled around in my head a couple times as you were talking,
Mhm,
but it's like critical thinking and critical feeling,
mhm,
critical, like, listening. Like, we have to sharpen all of these different faculties
mhm,
while we're present for one another. So when I'm listening to you, sometimes I close my eyes so I can actually really take in what you're saying and feel it, how it's rippling or ricocheting.
mhm,
And you know, some people, they're like my grandfather in debate, they're coming into battle and they're like, this is my idea, come on, let's go. And they may not be receptive in the way that I just took that in. They may be combative with their ideas,
yeah,
and like, this is my idea to defend till the end, and I just need to find sort of a manipulation, just like a moving
mhm,
malleable, how can I move this around to prove my point?
yeah,
Instead, how can we create the best point from all of our points of views?
mhm.
And that makes me think of the indigenous way of sitting around the circle of the fire, 360 degrees with the light in the center,
Yeah.
and, having that true power.
I'm just laughing because the card pull that I did yesterday. Oh, did I put all the cards back? No, I think I left them out. Well,
I feel like,
anyways, one of them was Council Fire.
yes.
Truly, Council Fire. I'm trying to remember if I, oh, here they are. Yeah, so everything that it's so relevant right now still. So it's medicine wheel, cycles and movement. Oh, and burden basket, self-reliance. I think
Hmm.
I pulled Council Fire the other day. But either way, what happens is yeah, the indigenous people would have these and they would take into account experiences and stories and dreams. Dream time was a conversation that the shamans, the dreamers, would actually interpret to share what they felt the direction of the tribe would go. Or, so that's that extra sensory, not necessarily in left brain analytical, here I am to show up, although that's important too. Because if we're just out here in the ethers all the time and just feeling, but we're not channeling it through a thought process of how do I get from point A to point B? I can't just float. I actually have to step, you know. There's just different ways of looking at it. But
Translation, a translatability, ability to translate and translay and relay the information that you get from the right side of your brain into the left side of your brain through the center. You're
oh,
bringing in these wordless, right, these imageries from the universal energy that we get, that stimulates our senses, that activates the pineal gland and our inner piezoelectricity, that's pinging off
mhm.
the crystals in our head, that's causing the visions and things. And then we can translate that into our left side, into applicable application into the 3D mainframe.
Yeah. So I had drawn this last time we spoke, and I was shown that this was kind of what was happening. If you see two pathways here and they're just going back and forth between this, and this is going back and forth between this, but that center space is that infinity. So if you put all those points together, and if you look at these two lines, they're intersecting, but they don't know that they're intersecting. And I was seeing that if you take that and flip it and invert it into the, rather than that, so that infinite spiral that all things are connected. Sorry, I just went off onto a tangent there, but I was kind of seeing that in my
Yeah,
mind's eye. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just I keep feeling into my heart and using that to look at all of the things that I would say are challenging me in the world. And when I say me, I don't mean just me, because
Yeah,
sometimes I'm challenged because other people are challenged.
yeah.
Sometimes I feel really comfortable with what's going on, And I
Mhm.
have my own explanation and way of understanding that suits me and makes me, accepting and diplomatic. But I'm more so challenged by my brothers and sisters that I see, certain streams of thought and opinion and everything come in, and it has people go up in arms because they feel like they have to defend their thoughts, their tradition,
Mhm.
all of these things because they feel like they're being attacked, or like
Mhm.
what matters to them is being erased. And
Mm.
it sends people into fight or flight because immediately they're like, we got to defend our right to live this way or to feel this way or to believe this way, raise our kids this way.
Mhm.
Immediately it's like into battle, defending the thoughts, defending the beliefs, the data, and then it's like it takes us into a very mental, argumentative, fiery expression. And it would be very different around a fire in a, like, join the family, sort of like hearts are open. How do you feel about this? What are you going through? What's your process?
Yeah.
What brought you to this conclusion? What's your
Yeah.
family history and tradition? This is ours. So
Yeah.
now you want to collectively take us all down this road. Let us know how you came to that conclusion. What are your dreams, right? It's like, what is the dream? What's the
Yeah.
collective dream? And it's just a completely different way of interacting with the potential trajectory. Right now, it feels like we're getting dictated to
Mhm.
by, I don't even know what it is. It seems like there are these people that are up there that get dictated, that then dictate to us and are like
Mhm.
handing us
Mhm.
the new marching orders. And we're just kind of like, where are we going? Who's
Mhm.
running this thing? There's no heartful connection and trust. And it
It's a
just
very
seems
big
like,
disconnect.
yeah, spiral after spiral.
Mhm.
So, and it keeps bringing me back to like parenting. And if we were teenagers and our parents were treating us that way, we'd be packing our bags and we'd be going, you know what? I'm mature enough to go this on my own because
Mhm.
I don't trust where this is going.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's part of the energy that we're literally coming into. And when I say that, it's like that's your rite of passage. We're in this rite of passage point where for humanity to blossom into um, it and forge its own direction without being
Mhm.
directed and redirected. It's like all of that is the agitation that we need to, and it comes back to steer our own ship
Mhm.
and to trust our own relationship with the universe and our own reference point within. That is our source point, our beacon, our
Mhm.
navigation system and center. And it's like, um, I keep getting this message like over the last week or so or longer. It's like, this is really a time of challenge, like of great challenge, of gathering up all the integrity within you and really like pragmatically and consciously deciding how to unfold and use all of your tools. And
Yeah.
it's getting shown like, and it's not gonna go off without a hitch. Like literally every time you try and do it, it's gonna be like, it's gonna seem like a failure. But really, that is that you're training to be in your utmost integrity. Your um that those misfiring is actually sharpening your tools. It's
Mhm.
actually plugging into your own system what works and what doesn't work at, in the best way. So it's like
Mhm.
come from it, come at it from this place always. Like a continual continuum of that attempted integrity and
Mhm.
heartfulness in all moments. And it's like, let that be your mantra. Let that be that, like I'm saying, that's the marching order as you're marching yourself in divine order. Just continually do that. Stay there
Yeah.
as opposed to when the direction comes at you, getting like really insulted, inflammatory, because some of the things that we're being confronted with are particularly uniquely confusing, inflammatory, and perfectly catered and designed to piss you off and
Yeah.
get you riled up and
Mm-hmm.
off your game.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, it's, you know, people are like, I can't believe this. It's like, well, that's exactly what it was meant to instill
Shock.
in you, to
Yeah.
shock you, unground you, unnerve you, and all of that stuff. And it's just like, once you see that, once you see how, and the phrase tailor made has been coming through a lot. It's like this reality structure, sorry, all of the things that your universe is giving you is tailor made for your soul's progression, uniquely tailor made beyond your mind's conception of what should be here and there. It's like if
Yeah.
you can let all of that go and understand that you're in a type of simulation, real biological simulation that is tailor made for your very specific soul's progression. And it's so absolutely unique. It has a trillion components to it. You
Mm-hmm.
can never wrap your head around it. So that's like locking yourself into trust, into your own trust, which is the seat of your ship,
Mm-hmm.
and just trusting your your navigation system and your capacity to just be guided and follow
Mm-hmm.
the instructions, which will as you tap in and trust in the instructions, they become the outstructions, they become the outer structure, but we
Mm-hmm.
have to dip in constantly into them.
Yeah. And as you're talking about that, I keep saying, I think I said this, I did a video and I don't know if I'm going to share it, but it was right before you got on. And I was just hearing companionship. Because what happens is there's people that are looking for something outside of themselves. And I don't mean that that's a good thing to find someone that you can connect with who can be your companion and your friend. But sometimes people are choosing that based on, oh my gosh, I could go into so many different places right now. Let me just sit with the companionship for just a moment, because the companionship is that compass, that inner compass for your own ship, and it's being your own best friend. So if you aren't friends with yourself and you don't know yourself and you don't like yourself, then everything comes out from that. That's what radiates out, inner to outer. This lack of self-worth, this lack of value system, this mistrust of what could be believed and what isn't. Is this real? Isn't this real? So then that continued shock to the system creates more separation from the inner to the outer, more separation from the companionship within. And then it gets people confused and it gets people to turn against themselves, really. And we're seeing that reflecting outside of us. Like, you're going to turn against your sister or your brother for something that um, petty, or that, which, from one perspective, the person who gets angry doesn't think that what they're getting angry about and being hostile over, I'm hearing hostile navigation, um, and they're projecting that onto the other person. And it doesn't have to be anger, it can also be judgment, it can be blame, it can be whatever that word is that is being projected. Ultimately, it comes back from us not being um, at one with ourselves. So if we're moving into that space constantly, we're the word that I heard earlier was we're avoiding. It's an avoidance. It's like we're constantly deflecting. We're on the defense. We have to defend our right to this. But then we come back into a space of, you know what? That person thinks this. I'm going to let them think that. Yet at the same time, I'm not searching outside of myself. I see that we don't necessarily agree, but I'm not going to continually put myself in front of that person that I don't agree with or that doesn't agree with me, so that I can constantly prove to myself that I'm right, because they're never going to see that. Boy, I just went into like 10 different places with that, like poof, because there are so many different things that are showing up for us because of this uh, washing machine, like you described. It's like we're getting on the spin cycle and we're like, ooh, there's pink. Ooh, there's black. Ooh, there's white. Ooh, there's this color. And we're just, where do we begin to, and it does come from our own inner compass. So it's having that compassion with ourselves to then express outwardly to the chaos that other people are being, I'm hearing, spooled into.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah.
And there was something you said earlier that it kind of pulled me into that tangent, but it's listening and being objective when we're listening, and not necessarily, and recognizing that everything is a reflection from one perspective. That doesn't mean that's who I am. The mirror is not me. It's just a reflection outwardly of what things look like. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I could go into so many different. So sorry, I just went off on a tangent. Poof.
Oh, it's all. Ooh.
So when we come back into that, it's, I'm hearing also no stone unturned. It's like, we can't, let's not throw stones. Let's just pick up the stone and look at it before we chuck it at someone. I'm also saying. But this also has to do with before where I see people collecting these stones and saying, no, this is what I believe. Oh no, this is what I believe. Nope, this is what I believe. And ultimately, we're collecting these belief systems and we're holding on to them. And that's weighing us down. And I'm seeing that people are afraid just to, so then they're like throwing these stones, and really it's not who they are. It's not who we are.
No, it's not. And as you're speaking, I was hearing possessed by ideas,
Mhm.
almost like like a possession,
Possession.
like overtaken by the energy of this idea that seems to come and animate you
Mhm.
for a little bit because you're
Mhm.
the person or whatever, they're not in their heart.
Yeah.
And when you're not in their heart, then the ideas can take the driver's seat, the mind, so something feel I feel something coming into my field like a message, and it's of something that I was thinking myself, and then I went and watched a Gigi Young video, and I love going and watching other people's content because they will have a way of saying it that I have never thought of,
Yeah.
but the data, the information, the feeling is there, and it's so it like brings new light to something that um I'd felt and not been able to express in a certain way, or it gives me another angle to look at it. So I would
Yeah.
encourage that. And I use anything that will cause a ping in my system because it will help me to like have something to ping off and have something to catalyze with. I'm like using it almost like a workout partner. Like when you
Mhm.
go to the gym and you're like, can you spot me? Like I can lift this on my own, but I don't want to
Yeah.
drop the max. So like if I'm,
Yeah.
it gives you a spot, it gives you that extra to play with.
Yeah.
So, and then also obviously you're always checking with how you feel. You're never just ingesting anything. You digest it, but you don't necessarily become it and take it all
Mhm.
in and like take it. So,
Yeah.
anyways, listening to her, and she was talking about the sort of mythical origin story that seems to be wanting to be perpetuated at us, at the new age community, or yeah, mostly the new age community, or people who would be into like ufoology, etc.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
a certain creation myth that's really um, there to be, persuaded by or accepted. And then she kind of brought up what she feels like is the true creation story, or our true origin story, which just had lights going off inside my head like, yes, 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 yes. This is what I've always been feeling, is that, the planetary spheres, they they are sentient beings that are massive consciousnesses, that have components to them that want to play out, and that literally, you know, Earth's, Gaia's components and dreams and desires are playing out within the sphere of her body through us, through all of her creation, and all, like, we're literally a part of her, that, and playing out within her. And
Mm-hmm.
all of the evolution comes through that, which is coming through her, which is coming through that, the ultimate creation. And
Mm-hmm.
that we are fed by the cosmic energy in whatever dream or creation is being created through that sphere. So it is literally just like nature. You're fed by the sun and you grow. And it's like all of these um, neutrinos and cosmic particles of light, of many spectra of light, like, that we can't even comprehend. We think of light as like, oh, light, there's light. But then when we dig deeper, we're like, oh, there's different wavelengths of light, there's different spectrums of light, there's different impact on the skin and
Mm-hmm.
the DNA. Oh, wait, our DNA is bioluminescent. And then, as
Mm-hmm.
Carrie was saying last talk with you, oh, wait, there's a type of melanin that is conductive. Like, we're
Yeah.
like, wait a second, we are these bioluminescent, conductive, we've got water, we've got high voltages of energy running through us. Um,
Crystal in the bone.
I think it was like Bruce Lipton or somebody who was actually talking about how much wattage is contained within our DNA. And if you were to you, combine all the humans of the planet, like how much wattage that is. We literally contain so much energy, so much light,
Mm-hmm.
so much potential, which, in Gigi's video, she talks about consciousness, and you can say falling or descending, coming down into a lower density, and how um, it's still the same energy, but it's dense. Like, it's literally condensation,
Mm-hmm.
which is a message that I've been getting over the years about, we are condensation. We are the dewdrops. We are the
Mm-hmm.
drops of dew, which means we're descendants from the great body of water that, through this process of, conduction and whatever that happens, that condenses energy, and then falls down onto a creation and then gets absorbed into it. Our soul and our energy is no different, in we're part of that traveling system. We find ourselves in places, we move and we go into things, and we find ourselves in an experience, which
Mm-hmm.
means we find ourselves here, but then we find the deeper self here as well.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, wow, okay, like, I'm an eternal traveler, gathering myself through the journey of existence, and I find myself wherever it is that I be, that I find myself. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we are continually doing, and picking back up where we left off. So it's just like, we are one with the cosmos. Just because we're on Earth doesn't mean that we're not cosmic. We are within it. We are one with it. Yes, it is the greater external that is continually feeding the internal from inside and outside, no separation. Just, yeah, we're not removed from it at all. There is nothing outside of us that's come and created us and then put its signature or stamp on us. We're literally one with the universe, fed by life itself. And then, from my own perspective, evolution is a really strong desire that blows up and comes, explodes like an epiphany within you. It's literally this ultimate call, which is like a ring, like a vibration that sends out a signal and then is met by whatever you need. It's like ask and you shall receive. To me, that is literally a vibrational ask that your DNA sends out. It's like an impulse that is then met with the cosmic ingredients
Mhm,
via light, energy waves, and particles to make that manifest.
mhm,
But it's not something like, it can happen in an instant, but there's something about creational momentum. There's
mhm,
literally this momentum and this building that causes these asks, these really powerful asks.
mm,
And that happens when you go through the passageway of really knowing yourself, and then you really know what you want, you really know what you need, you really know what to ask. And again, and to me, that's a uh, um, I'm hearing kaleidoscope and collision, but I'm not sure if that's like this thing that happens. And you know, some call it kundalini rising. It's just a natural process that happens within your energy field that is part of a maturation.
mhm.
Yeah, and a trust system.
I love that perspective. I was just talking about the bridge trust system, which is trust. I did that whole,
Trust.
I think I wrote a blog post called Building Trusts. And I was shown a truss bridge and how it looks like, like literally like a crystalline lattice work. It's a truss system, the way that it's built. But you have to have a foundation in order to build it on. You can't just have this bridge floating around, right? I love that perspective. Um, and it's funny because as you're sharing it, I can feel into what you were describing earlier, what you're feeling into, like all the body sensations, all the thoughts that are coming in. Is that mine? Is that something I'm sensing that somebody is going to have in the collective? Is this something that I'm feeling that I resonate with? Are there certain words that you use that I don't resonate with? Why would I feel that way? I mean, this is all at once, boom, that I then tune into when you're talking. So that can be challenging, especially when uh, navigating right back to the ship, like navigating my ship and going, okay, where do I want to steer this? What direction does this? For me, it's all of it. I'm the same way. I like to dive in and just bring it. Like, ooh, let's talk about that. I don't feel like I want to talk about that. Ooh, let's look at this. I've already looked at that before, and that's not for me. So, or maybe I'm in a different place now when I'm looking at this than I was when I looked at it the first time around, and it now has a brand new meaning for me. And what you're talking about too with this whole building trust, it is trusting. How do we trust unless we trust ourselves? How do we got to be our own best friend again. It's like being our own best friend then creates the ability to build a strong foundation. And I'm hearing from the ground up. And when I say that, I'm hearing the G, the round, the ring, the G force, the great force, the round, the circle, coming back around into oneness. And not getting pulled out of our foundational core of existence, which is that when you're describing that idea of reality and that concept of having an epiphany, right? We're having these epiphanies that are constantly then bringing us into this bigger expression of source, we could call it. I see that as, whew, I could go into so many different places. I see it as breathing. Breathe it out, breathe it in as this one organism.
Mhm.
When I breathe right now and I say that and I breathe out, I visualize that coming out of me and then the whole earth going whoop, and then bringing it back in, not just the earth, but the cosmos, and then breathing it back in. And when you go that big, poof, it's
Okay.
like,
You doing that is making me, it's reminding me that we are We are human. We are humanity. We are humanity. We are human
Mm.
trees. We can take in these pollutants, thoughts, all these things, and we can literally transmute them and breathe out acceptance, love, forgiveness, compassion, understanding, all of these things. And how, again, this time is so uniquely crafted to set people off that, I'm hearing, return cycle, which is like recycling, thoughts and energy and creating good vibrations, right? Hearing that song.
Da-na-na-na. I love that song. Whew, Beach Boys.
Well, and the 90s, the good vibrations. Um,
Oh,
not
good
even
vibration.
dun, dun, dun. Um,
Hmm.
it's just, I'm being reminded of our powerful capacity to do that. And that so many beings who consider themselves light workers, etc., that is like, we're in the ultimate time of challenge right now. And not to be discouraged by the challenge and the
Mhm.
challenger. Like, there's an excitement when I say that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to make anybody afraid or anything. I'm saying that, and this reminds me of dreams that I think we were having a while ago, like when we first met, and a theme that was going when we first met about the Olympics, and how I was dreaming that people were coming from all corners of the universe to this Olympic ring to test out their abilities and to show what they can do. And it's kind of like, if you want to bring it, this is where you bring it.
Yeah.
Like, this is a smorgasbord. This is a crapshoot. This is a wild creation. And come and carve out your frequency here. Come and, like, I see people going like, well, I'm going to go to Earth and I'm going to write this book and it's going to be this message and it's going to do this way. And someone's like, I'm going to do that, but slightly different. And I'm going to
Mhm.
bring this invention and I'm going to shock people by being the most obnoxious, like, like, I'm just going to shock people into like another perspective. I've come here
Yeah.
to shock the shit out of every single thing
I'm going
possible.
to trigger everyone.
Yeah, this is a grand show, baby. Like,
I love
so
that.
there's so many prerogatives here.
Hmm.
And can we play with it? Can we lighten it? Can we lighten the load? Can we not fall into the trigger traps? Can
Hmm.
we
I'm hearing
remember?
temper trap.
Can we remember to temper ourselves? Temper
Mhm.
the fires, like, temperance.
Well, it's
And
also feeling into your own temperature, noticing is my temperature, like what's going on here? How am I feeling?
what is that
Oh,
in my sensor? What is, indication system?
well, even as you were explaining that story about the video and the idea of creation and how it feels for you, there I could sense into people listening and going, "Oh no, that's not how it works."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I could sense into people going, "Okay, well, that's wrong because," and it goes back to the Olympics. There are rules that you have to follow in the Olympic Games. And even those are being actually highlighted right now, I think, in sports, right? That those are all changing. Like we're in the process of like bring it. Everything is here now. And we're being invited to choose through freedom of choice on earth what processes and coming together and points of views and perspectives we can utilize to build our trust, our bridge, bridging together all forms of humanity, all walks of life, yet doing it in such a way that we're not constantly being required to trigger each other. We're in that stage right now, we're in that space. But if something that we say, for example, triggers someone else to go, no, that's not correct, that's okay.
Right.
I'm not here to tell anyone that this is the way it is or this is the way that it isn't. Although some people feel the need to tell me this is the way and this isn't. But that doesn't mean I necessarily have to take that on as mine. That's theirs. that's their ownership of a particular story or paradigm or reality. I choose to look into all paradigms and realities to then access different potentials that perhaps ring true for me in my deeper sense of knowingness. And they may not, I'm hearing categorically line up for everyone else because people are busy in some spaces and places. I'm hearing busybody. People are busy creating categories that they feel they need to create a companionship with in order to then be their story or version of morality or whatever it might be. I could go into so many different, I just went poof again. But again, I feel that, I recognize it, I sense it, but I'm also recognizing that it's okay. I listen to people that I don't agree with anything that they've said, really, except one thing. And I'm like, ooh, ping, that's awesome. I'm not going to necessarily be angry at what it is that they are stating is their perspective or their story. I'm like, thank you for pointing out that one thing that I needed to hear that was relevant for my expansion. And the rest of it,
The rest of it is useful as a reverse ping. And
yeah,
we talk about this in the group, like I will watch certain videos that would trigger me, and I'll actually watch certain things until it doesn't trigger me, and I'll
yeah,
switch body, and I'm like, oh, I'm good now. I'm not triggered anymore
I've let
because
that go.
you can
Integrated.
show me where I'm bothered. If I'm just watching stuff that I agree with all day, and then I go out into the real world and
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
love that.
when you're in the what I'm calling the real world, you're not picking every single person that you're going to run into. You don't get to click and close if you don't like it. You're going to meet that gas station attendant. You're going to bump into that. So we really need to not create so many echo chambers of like resonance. We should take moments, if we're not, to challenge ourselves. But if we're only challenging ourselves, we should then stop that and take a moment to solidify and affirm and realign what our core values are, and not just
Mhm.
sit on the trigger. Because some people just are trigger happy and they just like to be triggered all day and
Yeah.
fired up
Yeah.
and in that mode. And that's actually that talks that talks to gene key 55, which is there's two aspects that are in gene key 55 right now in the now chart, which we've been talking about. It's been coming through us in our words. And it's moving from victimization to
Mm.
freedom to actual freedom. And it talks about the addiction to being triggered emotionally by things external to then put you
Mhm.
in victimization. And it's this loop of being really triggered by something outside of yourself and letting it set you into a loop of victimization, excuses and angers and lower, like, I can't do anything about this. Like, just it down spirals you.
Mhm.
And understanding and compassion, understanding really, being understanding, having an ability to see how it got to that way, and just going, okay, I understand, instead of
Mm.
like broken by something, going like swallowing it and being like, okay, I don't like this, but I understand how it's here, which are the doorways to ultimate self-responsibility, accountability, and like really taking responsibility for your own energy, and
Yeah.
seeing where your lineage could have brought you here. Like, where did we come from? Where did we come from as a country, as a culture? Like, how understanding can we be here?
Yeah.
Really understand, which is a part of knowing thyself, which includes your family tree, your history, and everything.
Mhm.
Then, that offers a certain level of freedom because you're not bombarded and then bogged down.
Yeah.
It's hitting you, but you're not taking it in and falling down
The
with it.
fog of eternal stench.
Yeah. Well, and you're bogged down with that eternal stench, or you're fired up, you got the G-force running, you're the
Yeah.
heat free, you're the breath of life, and you're literally
Oh,
letting it be, letting it breathe. Like the air, the light is coming through you. You're more transparent, translucent. Things are
yeah.
moving through you.
Well, when you were saying understanding, I really wanted to kind of touch on that a couple different ways because I can see and hear people going, well, how you're you're expecting me to understand that
Yep.
this person is in charge of our country, or this person isn't in charge of our country, or this person did this to me and they were wrong and I'm supposed to understand.
Yeah.
What I'm going to venture to say is it's not what we think it is. It's not understanding and being complacent and saying, okay, walk all over me, I
Yeah.
understand. It's
Oh, yeah.
not standing underneath someone, allowing them to dictate to us what it is that we should or should not be seeing, feeling, hearing, looking at, how we should be feeling by looking at what they are dictating to us. It's an understanding, because I hear a lot of people going, well, no one understands me. I want to be understood. That is part of the illusion from my perspective. The delusion that we were kind of talking about the other day. It's like there's this delusion that I have to be understood in order to be validated, in order to be valued, in order to be recognized. Yet that is not necessarily true, because your perspective may not be the same perspective in 5 years. Therefore, if people don't understand where you're coming from, then that can cause a trigger for us to say, well, no one understands me. I don't understand what's going on. No, this is another layer. This is not getting hung up on the entrapment of the word code system that is also being projected right now. And I'm hearing projectified, like that's a play on words. But if I look up understanding word origin, for example, so we play with words all the time, because my guidance team, and I think yours too, our higher selves are like, look, just because you live off of a base foundation of the English language in this reality, that's not the only language. The syllables, the syllabus for the language is not this way in all dimensions, time streams, galaxies, and expressions. Therefore, yes, we need to set a solid foundation, or the where to build on, but then the branches of the tree are going to take on different fruit because they come from different vibrations and frequencies. And I loved the fact that you said, you have to look at these variations and these differences because these different fruit do come from the same tree. And they have different nutrients for each of us. Sometimes we need an apple, sometimes we need an orange. But having said that, not avoiding it, saying, well, I'm not going to look at the apple because really I'm only the orange. On the flip side, also, though, if it doesn't resonate with who we really are, I just wanted to touch on this. It's okay from one perspective not to play in that field. However, the question becomes, and what we're being invited to ask ourselves is, why doesn't it resonate with us? Is it because it's really not wholesome and nutritious? That's possible. Absolutely. It's possible that what we're looking at and what we don't need to play in and what we don't need to be distracted by is a reality that no longer fits who we really are. And it's an echo, you said echo chamber earlier, it's an echo of a system that is corrupt, that is falling apart. And we don't have to sit and play with that. But in order to have a better understanding of what is happening and why things are happening, and to feel into our own resonance, sometimes we have to look at things that don't resonate with us so that we can recognize this deeper space that we're expanding into. I don't know if I said that. I was kind of all over the place, but um,
Yeah.
so understanding is to comprehend. I'm sorry. I just wanted to, before, so if you look at the etymology, that's funny, a big wave just popped up on my, so it's to comprehend is right, what the, but it's also uh, grasp the idea of, receive from a word or words, or from a sign, the idea it is intended, sorry, I just now I'm like poof,
Yeah.
it is intended to convey or to view in a certain way, to stand in the midst of, or just to stand. So it's like these are the originations of this word. So when we understand something, we're seeing perhaps the view or the idea in which it was conveyed from. It doesn't necessarily mean we're in agreement with it.
And understanding is still a no.
Yeah.
You know, it's to stand in your true core and really receive the information
Mm-hmm.
without um, without any judgments about it, which is, what is that, subjective or objective? Um,
It doesn't matter.
well, I
Just
want
kidding.
to play with you with that later because you said projectified, and then I wrote above it objectified, and underneath it electrified, and
Mm-hmm.
elect. So that's, yeah, that'll take us into
We
some more.
can elect to object something that is not necessarily the subject matter that we should be focusing on.
Yeah, and then eject from it. Let it go. Don't let it roll around constantly. Um,
Whew.
oh, that, yeah, that's, for myself. I don't necessarily mind that. I don't mind when there's something sticky that I have to work with, and I'll wrestle with it a little bit, and I'll let it hang all over, and I'll find where it feels certain ways within me, and I use that as a tuning fork in reverse. It's not the
Yeah.
frequency, it's not the sound I want to hear. It's not the sound I like, but I'll let it play and play over and over, and I'll go, where is that coming from? And I'll feel, where is that being weird? Why can't it go right through me? Why
Yeah.
can't I'm not transparent in that it can go right through, and then I'm that tree. So
Mm.
and then I'll go, oh, okay, I have a judgment about this. I think life has to look this way. I
Yeah.
feel attacked by it in this way. And then I'll start going, I'll really write that down. And that again sometimes doesn't alleviate it because there might be a deeper core. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
just wait. But it will feel better for me if I can break it down, again,
Mm-hmm.
help myself digest it to that degree. So then when it comes, I know why I'm triggered by it, by that same
Yeah.
subject matter. It relieves and alleviates the offensiveness. And again, the stench, right? The swamp, the
The
smell,
bog of eternal stench.
right? It alleviates some of that smell. So it's more
Yeah.
tolerable for me to come into contact with another person's. And now I'm hearing perspiration, prescription of reality,
Yeah.
aspiring from them, from their smell, from, and someone's sweat, right? It's like the
Mm-hmm.
toxins of the expiration of all
The
that they
old
are,
energy.
the old energy, everything that they're digesting, everything that's coming through them, and our pheromones, and how that's actually part of our intelligence as well.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up because earlier that was what I forgot was the you talked about people that are constantly triggered or they feel the need to constantly trigger others, and that might be their role in the Olympics. But also that is a hormonal thing. It can become an addiction. So it can be this sense, that shock factor. It's like it raises the cortisol in the body and it secretes certain hormones that can help a person feel more alive,
Um,
to feel more like juice.
wow.
And so that's something to recognize. And I recognize that within myself. Like you said, I also like to go down the rabbit hole, but a few years ago, I went down that rabbit trail and I was lost in it a little bit because I was so enthralled and ensnared in the entrapment of the system, meaning I was like fascinated by it. Like, whoa, this is like not just the stories and not just who might be involved in these stories and not just where this might have come from originally. I'm talking galactic to now. I was just like, yes, take it all in. And then I realized that's not my role in the Olympics.
Yes.
I'm not here to share that with everybody, but there are people that do choose to do that, and that's their role because that's what they're truly drawn and inspired by. And yeah, there's some that might just be addicted to it and they're just parroting or saying what they are feeling, whatever. That's a different video topic that I really don't want to get into, but we've talked about it kind of before. But it's that creative expression. Some people are following that need to create others' expressions, but what I'm saying is I went down that and I felt into it and I felt almost overwhelmed because at that moment I'm like my senses were so on edge and raw because I was sensing into things that did not resonate with me in such a deep level. I was triggered by everything, and all of a sudden I saw so many stories that I was like, how can I possibly go through life knowing this and still function in a place of happiness and joy and integrity when I see all of these other stories that are not in integrity. And I had to separate myself from that, even though we're all one. And I had to look at that from an observer perspective and recognize that that isn't where I am best utilizing my electricity. I think we got about 15 minutes maybe. I just got the signal from my husband, but I wasn't best utilizing so that juice, right? That nectar. So I could have easily gotten entrapped in that system of constant cortisol and heightened senses because when we turn on our extrasensory ability and we tune into it, we do become a tuning fork. And if we're allowing that story we're connecting with that on our over and over and over again, we're then pulled into that pull, that magnetism draws it to us and we are drawn to it. So for me, I had to stop, drop, set them down, roll.
Oh,
Oh, oh. I had to find my new song. I had to find my rhythm and find, wow, is this bringing me joy? No. Is it creating expansion for me? Yes. But is it, and again, you brought up the Amish. Is this
yeah,
where I stop?
yeah,
No. That's their creation of distortion of reality. And I see it. I'm now going to digest it and integrate it and understand from another perspective how and why this could be happening. And if I don't understand how and why it could be happening, sometimes I just have to accept that I don't understand.
yeah. Understand that you don't understand, which is being understanding, right? It's like I'm agreeing to disagree and I'm disarming.
Yeah. But I'm not going to continuously feed into it and want to talk about it and play with it because at
Yeah,
that point I have to step away.
yeah. Exactly.
Otherwise, that nectar and that juice is being I don't want to say wasted, but it is being pulled somewhere else.
Right. It's a feeder system. And there's a like as you're speaking, I was seeing the whole feeder system. It was taking me into, once we truly understand the reality mechanics, how we are a battery of consciousness, how we literally generate and support everything around us, and
Fuel.
shown how we're the fuel. We're the system that there is like another overlay system that literally feeds off of us and generates us into this side real reality. It's not direct. It's not going direct. We are being indirectly redirected and rerouted. And
Yes.
a lot of what a lot of souls have come here to do is to pave direct to source, and that's what Brother Jesus did. Go
Mhm.
direct, go direct.
Mhm.
And even his words were redirected. So,
Yeah.
there's this whole thing of cut the middleman out and go direct.
Mhm.
And in Gene Key 55, it talks about even spirituality itself can become the focal point of victim consciousness. It can give you the idea that you can do something to free yourself from your shadows and from your emotional suffering. This notion has led to the greatest illusion of them all, the illusion of another spiritual reality somehow outside of your own sphere of experience. Um, if we look at this notion with clarity, we see the very same pattern of the longing to find fulfillment. If you create an unattainable reality, you can spend your whole life longing for that reality without ever having to directly experience it. And that's again going direct.
Mhm.
Um, I'll read a little bit more. I feel like this is important.
Mhm.
For many religious or spiritual people, this can be a hard truth to stomach. True enlightenment is not what we think. It isn't exciting in the least. It is utterly ordinary. In spite of this, most spirituality is built upon the pursuit of this extraordinary. High levels of frequency do not necessarily lead you to spiritual experiences. In fact, high levels of frequency tear down the very illusion that there is such a thing as a spiritual experience. In the contemporary New Age culture, spiritual materialism is right. That is to say, people now have a brand new drug called the pursuit of truth. So
Mm.
this is
Ooh.
all like this is all about our own chemistry, our own. And when you were saying table earlier, I was hearing elemental table.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and
I've written a lot about that. Like it's different now. We don't, there's so many new elements.
so the elemental table, the round table, the table of life, the dinner table, welcome everyone to the table. Um, it's like your own chemistry. And we were talking about hormones and pheromones, and we're talking about melanin types of melanin being conductive, DNA, or the skin suit, sensory. So we're talking about all of these different mechanisms of our biological experience of energy and reality, and how actually incredible that is when you understand the equipment that you're in
Mhm.
and how profound its capacity is. And then how, when you're off course, you can get jacked in to these highs of your own chemistry, burning on your own fumes of
Yeah.
cortisol, adrenaline, and drugged in, like you're
Yeah.
drugged by shock and awe. You're caught in this
Yes.
drug of shock and awe, and we fall into it. We don't even know. Like I fell into it in the 2 year thing with regards to the virus and everything. I fell
Mhm.
into that and really went round and round in this and was just like really like, and it becomes almost not a hallucinogen, but like
You're spun
you're
out.
reeling in something. You're
Yeah.
reeling in and you're reeling in. We're going round and round.
Well, then you learn all these truths, right? That then create more truths, that then create more truths, but then they're based on a false reality system.
Yeah, it's a mixed truth. They're misguided. They're
Yeah,
misunderstood.
some of them are right and some of them are wrong, but they're not right or wrong because they are attached to a particular reality
Choice.
that we're
Because
trying to detach from one perspective.
yeah, well, we're the creators of our own. We are the co-creators. We're co-creators of our reality, and we're the coordinates and coordinates, co-ordained, core or co or
Mhm.
coordination. Um,
Chord,
mhm,
coordination, core,
yeah, we're
divination.
and coursing, like that's driving our ship. So it's like we are unknowingly making agreements with things as we believe in them, as we're
Yeah.
taken for fun and we're set off course, and then we're thus creating a course that we didn't realize.
Mhm.
And I'm hearing course of destruction, course of distraction.
Mhm.
Um,
And I'm hearing, as you're saying that, I'm hearing vocal cords. So what
yeah.
happens is then we speak about things, or we talk about things, which again, I wanted to share, there's like a little dichotomy there, because we did say earlier, well, we should be able to talk about these things. We should be able to have these conversations, but it's the sound behind the sound. It's the way that we're having these conversations. It's what we're tuning into as we have these conversations. And these vocal cords, are we vocalizing something that we're tethered to? That's a cord that's courting us into courting. Like, hey, come hang out with me. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you that. And you're like, ooh, I just met this person and they're amazing. And I'm vocalizing. I'm just using that as an example. We could play with this in so many different angles. So it's, again, using our own integrity, our own internal compass, but we can't do that if we're just following the outer storylines, those chords, or those songs that we're following that are part of the past, that are part of the echo chamber.
Oh, DJ. It's like, hey, Mr. DJ, play that song for me. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, no, I've got this song that I'm gonna play. You can say, sure, I'll play that song for you, or you can say, no, I'm not gonna play that song.
There's a song by Odessa that I just love. There's one line and I can't remember exactly how he says it, but he's like, he's basically saying that everything, whatever happens next, is based on what the DJ plays next. Like when he's at the club, he's like with a girl and he's going, okay, well, whatever happens next all hangs on that DJ. So DJ, play me something good that's going to get me to hang out
Yeah,
with this.
yeah.
And I'm just seeing
Yeah.
that, like, we are the DJs. We're spinning our own tunes, and we can do an overlay of a song, or we can loop into a song as our baseline frequency. But then,
So
are we
when
creating our own song? Let me pause. I'm going to pause for just a second. Oops. So I think we'll end on this note. We're both being summoned at this point. We covered so much, and there's so many layers that we could dive into with all of this, but essentially we are just sharing from our perspective different ways of looking at things that are going on in the collective. I'm going into flow. From our perspective, what's going on in the collective, so that we can then essentially radiate out from our own inner illumination, and that we can then come from into that space so that we can have that ripple effect and be the change that we want to see in the world. And being patient and compassionate with ourselves and with each other is really what's so key right now. So thank you, Kandice, for sharing your beautiful perspective. As always, it's so fun to play.
thank you.
Whew. And if you guys haven't, I'll share her link in the comments below, and I'll also share that video from Gigi if you guys want to check that out. And that way we can, and we'll try to do this again next Sunday. Namaste. I'm just going to end here. Stop recording.